Good afternoon and welcome. My name is Vincenza Vicari Bentley, and I am an accredited financial counselor. Mackenzie, did you want to?
Yes,
Okay.
I will read your bio. First off, thank you so much for joining us for the Health and Wellness Expo, everyone. This is our final presentation, and we are so excited. A little bit about Vincenza. She's a program coordinator for the Empowering Financial Wellness Program with Utah State University Extension, based in Salt Lake County. She is an accredited financial counselor that has extensive experience working with individuals and families providing financial counseling, as well as teaching a variety of personal finance classes. Vincenza is also contributing author to Utah Money Moms blog. And I will hand it off to you and we can go ahead and get started.
Okay, great. Thanks, Mackenzie. All right, so today we are going to talk about PowerPay. Some of you may have heard of PowerPay. It was a program developed by Utah State University Extension by a professor. And so today we're going to talk about how to use it to defeat your debt. Our objectives today are going to be to talk about how financial stress can affect all aspects of your life. We're also going to talk about how can you cope with financial stress in a healthy way. And then lastly, we're going to dive into creating a debt payoff strategy that actually works and that doesn't cost you any additional money. And I will be demonstrating that for you. So I thought it'd be fun just to start off with a little icebreaker. Wanted to share a funny little video with you. A comedian, his name is Tim Clue, and he talks about debt. So I thought I'd share that with you. Just a minute of it.
Please welcome Mr. Tim Clue.
No, I don't know if anybody's in debt tonight, but if you are, I'm going to tell you right now not to worry about it, because I used to worry about it. It doesn't help at all. I used to be a little bit of debt and it bothered me a lot. Now I'm in a lot of debt, it just bothers me a little. And I know why. It's because I figured it out. I finally hit the number. And you know what's key about the number is that you don't even know what the number is until you hit it. And then one day you're home, you're just kind of looking through the bills to discover the MasterCard, the Visa, and all of a sudden it hits you. Wow. I can never pay this off. Well, maybe if no. All right, let's go to Target. I'm buying a big screen. Who wants one? Come on.
Okay, so I just wanted to share that with you, just a little humor. You know, debt can sometimes be something can be stressful, but we can always find humor in stressful situations. So we're going to talk about some ways to cope with stress in a healthy way when it comes to your finances. So let's talk a little bit about debt and financial stress. It is probably, you know, when I talk about being in debt, I'm talking about being in an amount of unmanageable debt. Not all debt is bad, and it is normal to have some debt to be able to buy the things that we need to buy. But when it gets to the point where it's overwhelming, it can start to feel like you don't have any motivation to address it and to deal with it. So if you're ready to get the work done, I think that's part of it, is just getting to a point when you're ready to attack it. And that's something that I personally had to go through. I had to get to the point where I was ready to tackle it. It takes a lot of motivation. And I think one of the most important things is to think about, what is your why? Why do you want to get out of debt? Think about it for just a few seconds. What can you do when you're debt-free that you cannot do now? How would your life be different if you didn't have those debt payments? What could you do with the money when you no longer have those debt payments? What will you be able to do with that money? Is it saving for something? Is it being able to give more? Is it being able to buy a home, a vacation, save for retirement? So thinking about all these things, what could I do? When you find your why, that's going to be your motivating factor to drive you to be motivated to pay off your debt. Debt elimination is by no means always easy, but I'm going to talk about some strategies hopefully to get you motivated. Unmanageable debt is something that has been a problem for many Americans, but the COVID-19 pandemic has spread this misery to millions of more Americans. And a shortage of money has led to a massive amount of anxiety in people. And this emotional strain of having debt and dealing with debt, it can be almost as damaging as that feeling of having your utilities cut off because you didn't pay your bill, or having your car repossessed, or seeing your credit score plunge because you're not paying your bills on time. Studies that have shown that financial stress that comes especially from having debt can affect all aspects of your life. We're talking about your physical health, your mental health, your emotional health, your relationships. Debt and stress are like co-joined twins, and it's really important to find healthy ways of coping with this stress that can be so detrimental to our well-being. And so as we go through this webinar, we're going to talk about some different ways to approach it to help reduce your debt and also to help reduce our stress. Because when we feel like we can have a handle on our stress and our finances, on our finances and our debt, it's definitely going to decrease our stress. So let's talk about some coping skills. So the first thing is educating yourself about finance basics and the terms of your debt. I think the hardest thing for a lot of people, and myself included, was being able to look at it, having to actually write down and look at what am I really dealing with, what am I facing? So because anything that's unknown in our lives is going to cause stress. So the more we know about it, the more we know that what we're dealing with. So make sure you understand the terms of your debt, meaning you understand the balance, you understand the interest rate, and you understand how long you have to pay that debt off. The second thing is, let's focus on what you can change and you can control, because you are more in control than you might feel like you are. We can't change the past. We can't, coulda, woulda, shoulda. This is not helpful. We can learn from the past and learn from our mistakes, and we can just make a commitment to making better choices in the future, better decisions, and build better habits. Choose to be at peace with your finances. Even if they aren't quite where you would like them to be, keep in mind that there is always something that you can do about it. Even if it's a small step, you are in control. And the last thing is making a plan. When you have a plan, you have a purpose, and you see that there's the light at the end of the tunnel. So we're going to talk about a tool that can assist you in making a plan for your future. Okay, so creating a debt strategy. So the first thing you do is make a list of all your debts. And this might include credit cards. Not all people choose to include their mortgage, your car loans. If you have payday loans, if you have anything in collections, you may have a student loan, personal loans from family, and maybe some bills that you're behind on. And if you have any debts that you're not sure of, or you maybe have forgotten about, a good way to check and see everything that you have is to go and pull your credit report. And you can do that for free at www.annualcreditreport.com. You can pull all 3 of your credit reports for free. That's from Equifax, Experian, and TransUnion. By law, we have the right to pull our credit once a year for free from all 3 of the credit reporting agencies. Because of the pandemic, they've actually allowed consumers to pull it once a week, and that has been extended until April of this year. They may extend that more because we are still in a pandemic, because there's been so much more fraudulent activity during the pandemic that they've allowed consumers to check it even more often. So if you have debts that maybe you've received collection notices and you're not sure where that's coming from, a good place to go back and check and make sure it's actually legitimately yours and begin investigating it is to pull your credit report. So that's the first step. List all your debts, gather all the information. The second thing is to calculate what you actually owe. And this is also known as a real debt report. And it's nothing fancy. It's simply a list of writing down what's your balance, what is the interest rate that you are paying, and what is the minimum payment that is required on that particular debt. Most of this information can be found on if you're getting a monthly bill. If not, you can always ask your creditor for a statement that has that information. And so this is an important step because sometimes facing the debt that we have and understanding how much of your money is going toward interest once you pay everything off might help you pay off the existing debts and maybe even avoid taking unnecessary debt in the future. Because after looking at all the interest that you would have paid, you might ask yourself, what could I have spent that money on instead? And then lastly, to create that debt report, you can also use PowerPay, which I'm going to demonstrate for you. It actually has a section in there where you would enter all of your information and it will calculate for you. You do have to know your principal, the interest rate, and your minimum payment, but it'll calculate for you how much you would pay off, how much you would be paying in total, and how much of that would be interest. And so that's at powerpay.org. Now, there are a few things in life probably that are more stressful than trying to juggle multiple debt payments, trying to make, pay your bills on time with minimal income. So when you're in a position where you're trying to pay off your debt, as I was, it can be confusing and overwhelming. For example, okay, I'm ready to pay off this debt now. In which order should I pay it off? Like, which one should I tackle first? Do I tackle the one with the smallest balance? Do I tackle the one with the highest interest? And maybe if I have a little bit of extra money, I got a windfall, or I made a budget and I have a little extra money, which one should I put it towards? Like, which one makes sense? It's not always clear. However, PowerPay is a great tool, a free tool that gives you a plan, that gives you options on how to pay off your debt faster and save you a ton of money in interest without having to come up with any extra money. So what you would do is you would go to powerpay.org and you would register for a free account. And once you register and create a profile, you'll have the opportunity to go in and enter all of your information. And it's a self-directed plan. You get to decide which debts you want to include and which sequence of debt payment works for you. So now I'm going to switch over to PowerPay and I'm going to show you what that looks like. So here we are. I've created a profile. You can create multiple profiles. Perhaps you want to look at different scenarios. So I've already created an account and I will create a profile and I'm going to demonstrate what this looks like. So I'm going to introduce you to Shelley because we're going to talk about her today. So here's Shelley. Okay, so when you create a profile, this is the first page that it will take you to. This is called the creditor information page. And I named my profile Shelley, and you'll see that name up here. And this is what the information you enter. This is what I called the real debt report. You can enter the name of your credit card. I was just generic. What is your balance? What is your minimum payment? What is the interest rate that you are paying? It is very important that you have the interest rate, and even more important that you have the minimum payment. Sometimes I work with folks that have a student loan that's in deferral and that it is in the next few months going to be something that they'll have to pay on, but they're not sure of the payment. If you have an inaccurate payment amount, it might throw off the calculator and it may show you that it'll take you 99 years to pay off the debt. So it's important that you have the math in there correctly. So what I want to show you here, as soon as you enter the information, I have several lines here. You would click on Save Creditor Information, and PowerPay will tell you right away, if you continue only making minimum payments on this $2,000 balance on your credit card, paying 20%, it'll take you 9 years and 1 month to pay that off. And so on and so on. Every time you enter information, PowerPay will tell you immediately without using the program. This is simply just the information sheet of all the debts. It'll tell you how much you owe. And then at the very bottom, it tells you without using Power Payments, Shelley will have paid $58,000. And of that, almost $15,000 is just in interest charges. And it will take her 9 years and 1 month to pay off all that debt. Now, it's hard to stay on a debt repayment plan for 9 years for a lot of folks. And so this is where PowerPay comes in. PowerPay takes that information and it creates a payment calendar and shows you which ways to pay off your debt is going to be quicker. So once you've entered all of your information, you would click on payment calendar. And here we go. This is where you have options to say, how would I like to pay my debt off? Sometimes there isn't a big difference in which way you pay it off. For example, whether I pay it in the highest interest, the order of paying off my debt with the highest interest first, and then going down to the one with the lowest interest, or whether I go with the lowest balance, it's going to be about the same in this situation. And it will tell you how much interest you would have paid and how much you're going to be saving by using PowerPay. So PowerPay will always recommend here the greatest savings method. So even if it's just in this example, you see how your interest paid is the lowest one. You pay a little bit more if you go with the shortest term or with the lowest balance. So PowerPay will always recommend the sequence of debt payoff that saves you the most money. And that's why if you look up here, that's what it's showing you. You can change that. You can choose to follow whichever plan you want. And then here it shows you exactly how long will it take you for each debt to be paid off. And so you can see here by paying your debt off in the order of the highest interest first, you're going to knock out 4 debts in about 1 year and 10 months. You'll have all those off. And the only thing Shelley will have to focus on for the next 3 years is the hospital bill. And so it'll show you, depending on which sequence, it'll show you, because for some people, psychologically or emotionally, there might be a debt that they just really want to knock out first. And you can choose to pay it off in that way. That would be calculate as entered. You just enter the debts on that page in the order that you want to pay them off. And PowerPay will show you the plan on how to do that. So we move down here to the detailed payment calendar. As you can see here, the payment method is highest interest first. If you wanted to see what it looks like with the others, you just click on the drop-down box and it'll refresh it and show you. So here we go. This is something you can print out. You can download it as an Excel file, or you can print it. You can stick this on your refrigerator and you say, okay, this is how I'm going to pay my bills every month. It tells you the payment and it goes all the way down and it will continue until your debt is paid off. Now I want to explain a little bit more about the principles of PowerPay and how it actually works. So I'm going to switch back to my presentation and I'm going to explain a little bit more in detail. How does this work? How are you able to pay off debt faster without having to pay anything extra? Okay, so here's the principles of PowerPay. They're called power payments. So what happens is you pay off one debt. Let's say you had a $100 payment on a debt. You're paying minimum payment on everything. That is one of the key factors. You have to pay minimum payments on all of your debts that you've included in your plan. And as soon as one debt is paid off, and let's say I paid off one of the credit cards that I was paying $100 a month. As soon as that debt is paid off, it gets rolled over and it goes to the next debt. Now, in my example with Shelley, she's focusing on paying the highest interest rate first. So that first debt that was paid off is not going to roll over that payment to the next highest interest credit card. So let's say that second credit card you were paying $200 a month. Now you have that $100 that's been freed up and that gets added on top of that $200 that you were paying anyway. So now you get to pay $300 on that next debt. And then that next debt gets paid off. And now you have $300 freed up and that $300 gets tacked on to the next highest interest debt. And this repeats until all of the debts are paid off. And this is without having to come up with any extra money. What is the key here? Instead of spending that money that has been freed up from paying off a debt, you are being very intentional and you are using that to pay off the next debt. And that is the secret sauce of how PowerPay works. The concept is nothing new, but this is just a really great, concise way of giving you a plan and telling you exactly how that is going to work for you. Again, without coming up with any extra payments. So here's Shelley. This was the information that we entered into PowerPay. So she owes $43,500 and her minimum payments every month are $1,135. So now Shelley has options. Remember, we said you can choose to pay it off in the order. So if she chooses not to use PowerPay, like I told you earlier, it'll take her 9 years and a month and she will have paid off $58,000, even though she only owes $43,000. Because of that, it's almost $15,000 in interest. So let's say she chooses to pay highest interest first. And so instead of it taking 9 years and 1 month, now it's only going to take her 3 years and 10 months. And she will have paid off $51,000 and paid interest $7,800. And now she's saved $7,000 without coming up with any extra money, just by paying the debt off in the order of highest interest first and using that rollover payment principle. But she has options. Let's say Shelley wants to make extra payments. She looked into her budget and she made it work so she could pay more than minimum on her debts. Now, when I was in my own debt payoff journey and I actually used PowerPay, that's how I became familiar with PowerPay many years ago. I decided to do a budget, never had a budget in my life, and having a budget and paying off debt really work well if you've never done a budget before, because it makes you very, very purposeful about where every dollar that you have, where it's going. And so this is what Shelley did. She made a budget. She looked at it. She saw how she could cut out some things. Maybe she canceled some subscriptions she wasn't using, or maybe wasn't going out to eat as much. And she was able to come up with a little bit of extra money every month. And she decided she had $150 extra she could pay and wanted to see how that would affect her payment plan. So I'll show you quickly in PowerPay how you can do that. So if you go back to the payment calendar, this is the first page where you entered all of your debt information. You see here, there's a little button that says extra payments. That's where you would enter that information. So you would type in the amount, and sometimes it can just be a one-time thing, or sometimes it can be, you can choose how frequent you want to have that extra payment. So in here, you just enter $150. You also decide when you would want to start that. And she's going to start that, it's almost February of 2022. And here, frequency, you can choose if you want to make that extra payment one time, you want to make it annually, or you want to make it monthly. And Shelley said she's found some extra money in her budget and she wants to do it monthly. So you save that payment information. And now we go back to PowerPay, our payment calendar. And now, as you can see, it's shaved off some time off of paying off her debt, and it saves her money in interest. And here I'll show you how that works. I want to show you now where that rollover payment, or how that works. So you see here that once this credit card is paid off, you see here when it's blank, it means it's already paid off. What happens is that $150 got rolled over to these two debts because this one's almost paid off. And so that $190 that Shelley was paying on that first debt, because she's starting to make extra payments, now there's some extra money. So that extra money is being rolled over to this debt, which is paid off. And so whatever is left over from that, plus the minimum payment, now she's able to make $35.96 on that third debt, still making minimum payments on the other ones. And we continue. Now these debts are paid off. And so now she's able to throw all of that money that she was paying on all of these debts. Now she's just focusing on that hospital bill. And so she's just making that she was making minimum payments, we said, of $1,135 plus the $150. And now she's just chunking away all that money at that hospital bill. And that's how she's able to be debt-free in 3 years and 2 months instead of 9 years and 1 month. And that was by doing an extra payment. Now, you don't have to do an extra payment to be successful with PowerPay. I just wanted to demonstrate in the event, you know, we're coming up on tax season here. Well, we are in tax season. Some folks might choose to use some or all of their tax refund and maybe, you know, throw it at their debt. And so this will give you an option if you want to do an extra payment, just a one-time. Again, you would go to extra payments and you could, let's say it's $500. And instead of it being monthly, you would just say a one-time only. And it would do that. It would apply that extra payment. Again, following the sequence. If you said highest interest first, it's always going to throw it at that debt that has the highest interest until that gets paid off. So that's extra payments. Now, another thing that a lot of people ask me as a financial counselor, a lot of folks will ask me, should I be saving money in an emergency fund while I'm paying off debt? And most financial experts will say that, yes, it's a good idea to do it if you can, because without an emergency fund, you do risk increasing your debt even more. And while everyone's situation is different, having money in an emergency fund, a little bit of money, even $400, studies have shown that having at least $400 in emergency savings is a good number to start with, because it can prevent a lot of people from having to take on high interest debt in order to take care of basic necessities. You know, we are in this pandemic, a lot of people got their hours cut or lost their jobs. And just having even $400, or you have an unexpected car repair or something. So thinking about that as at least having a little baby emergency fund so that you don't have to then rely on credit cards or high interest payday loans or debt or things that are high interest to get you through until that next paycheck. So I just want to show you, demonstrate how that works. If you wanted to start building an emergency fund while you are paying down debt. Again, you don't have to come up with extra money. How does that work? Well, we talked about those rollover payments. So when money is available, it will take part of that rollover payment, and instead of putting it toward all of it towards debt, it'll take some of it, however much you want, and start putting it towards an emergency savings. So how do we do that? I will show you. So in your profile, you click here on this drop-down box, PowerPay, and it says emergency fund. Okay. You get to decide how much of the available money from the rollover payments do you want to put towards your emergency fund. Let's say Shelley says she wants 25%. Here it says percent of available funds. She wants 25% of available money to go towards emergency, and then the rest is going to go towards paying down that debt. Now, you can also put a maximum monthly amount, like say, I don't ever want more than $50 going towards my emergency fund. Don't have to do that, optional. Expected rate of return. Well, we're assuming that folks are putting this money into a savings account. Savings accounts earn a little bit of interest. They're not earning very much right now, but to keep the math simple, let's say 1%. And then you get to decide, when do you want to start contributing to your emergency fund? But know that you won't have money available until one of your debts is paid off. So if we scroll up here, I want to show you that it will tell you, PowerPay will calculate for you when that first rollover payment's available. In this example, they're saying there's going to be some money available in next month because there's going to be a debt paid off. So we could say February of 2022, I want to start contributing. You can decide when you want to stop contributing, or you decide at what balance. So let's say Shelley decides she wants to have $1,000 in her emergency savings. So once $1,000 has been built up in emergency fund, she wants to stop contributing, and all of the rollover payments will be directed towards the debt. And you would just save that information. And then when you go back to the payment calendar, you're going to see that it adds a column for emergency fund. And you can start to see month by month how that emergency fund is building. Now, does PowerPay pay your bills for you? No. PowerPay gives you the plan, and that's why it gives you that detailed payment calendar. So you have to take the step of having that money, if you're building an emergency fund, transferred from checking into a savings account. And obviously you have to pay your bills, but it gives you a schedule for how you need to do that. And that's what I love about this detailed calendar, because it's something that I just printed and stuck on my fridge. You see this emergency fund contribution. So there's only $37.50 because that's 25% of what's available. The rest is going towards that first debt. And it keeps going. And as you can see, at one point, it stops contributing because Shelley has met her goal of saving $1,000. And there's another column here at the bottom that tells you month by month, if you've transferred that money into savings, what should be in there, because it calculates that little bit of interest that you put in, that 1%, and it just keeps going and going and going. And you can see that by August of 2023, she will have saved $1,000. Again, without having to come up with any extra money, because she just redirected some of those power payments. So in Shelley's example, what it does is it will delay, it will slow down a little bit. And in her case, by choosing to have some of her available funds going towards emergency, it delayed her being out of debt by 1 month. But she's going to come out, she'll come out of that with having $1,000 in her savings. So just by sacrificing 1 month of being debt free. And then when you do that, you can always go back and look at the schedule, and PowerPay will tell you how that affects how much you pay off, what's your interest, and how much you would have saved. And so PowerPay gives you options. And that's what I love about this program. Now, once you decide to have a plan in place, the final step is that to follow it closely, and you have to stop using debt. To have any benefit of a debt elimination plan, you have to stop using debt. So for me, it was cutting up the cards, closing them. For some folks, it's just putting them away, getting them out of their wallet, whatever works for you, but you have to stop using debt or this program won't work. And you might have to adjust your plan every so often. Maybe you decide to do extra payments and something else comes up and you say, I can't do extra payments. You just remove that from your plan. It is flexible. And fine tuning your plan will just give you a better estimate of the progress towards your goal. So you can become debt free. It's possible. If I can do it, anybody can do it, because I was very, very anti. I just thought I could just stick with this debt. Everybody has debt. I can just live with paying this debt for the rest of my life. But it got to the point where it became overwhelming and I had to do something about it. So just want to reiterate some things. It's really important to remember your why behind your desire to be debt free. That is what's going to drive you, having that reason why, because I want to, because I can. And if you're in a relationship and your partner and you work together, it's always great to have a cheerleader, to have an accountability partner. If you tell somebody about what you're doing, you're 60% more likely to achieve it. If you write down your goals and you tell somebody what you're going to do, you're probably going to be 90% more successful, because you built some accountability, right? You don't want to fail. So having that why is super important. That will drive you to stick to your debt-free plan. We talked about dealing with financial stress. While it can be overwhelming, you can use healthy coping strategies to reduce the stress. And then use PowerPay to get started with a strategic plan to become debt-free. If anything, just looking at what debt you have, and you can always go back and do it later, but at least thinking about it and trying to come up with a plan on how you can be debt-free. So I want to leave you with some action steps, what you can do next. So if you haven't checked your credit report, this is just good practice in general, whether you have debt or not, or you're not sure, even if you're not sure that if there's debt that you're not sure that you have. This is good for anybody. Go to annualcreditreport.com. It is a federally mandated website. It is free. Careful if you Google free credit reports, it might take you to another website. That's not the legitimate one. This is the only one. Get your credit reports for free. It's super important that we review them at least once a year. If you haven't looked at your credit reports for at least a year, I highly recommend you go and you pull all three. It's super easy. You just have to answer some questions that identify you, social security number, date of birth, etc. Okay, second thing, action item is gather all of your debts and calculate how much you owe, even if it's just on a piece of paper. If you want to do it on an Excel spreadsheet, encourage you to use powerpay.org, even if you just use that creditor information sheet that calculates that for you. Sometimes just seeing that number in your face and seeing how much money is going toward interest, which is money going to the wind, as I like to call it. Sometimes that will be that thing. Maybe it makes you angry, maybe it gets you motivated, but it might be that little spark that gets you thinking about, okay, I want to tackle this. I want to do something about it. And if you're ready to tackle your debt, go to powerpay.org, calculate your debt, compare your payoff times, and make a plan. And you will be amazed how many years you're going to save off of being debt-free and how much money you're going to save. And think about all the other things you could be doing with that money instead of paying other people. Okay, so if you want to learn more, I invite you all to join us on the blog at Utah Money Moms. I am one of the contributors to that. We talk about all kinds of things, talk about budgeting, we talk about credit, we talk about debt, we talk about being financially organized. You can follow us at Utah Money Moms. We're on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Also wanted to share with you, we have a course called PowerPay Money Master. And you'll find that at the same website when you go to powerpay.org. And if you are a resident of Utah, I highly encourage you to apply for a fee waiver. This is a kind of a deep dive into personal finance. It has 10 modules. It's short videos and worksheets. It's self-paced. And it's a wonderful way to really get, if you're really interested in just getting more financial literacy. I learned a lot. I'm a financial counselor, and I learned a lot from this course. I highly recommend it. And if you are a resident, encourage you to apply for that fee waiver. Otherwise, normally it's a $40 course, but it's a fantastic course if you're interested in learning more about personal finances. And then lastly, we would encourage you to join us. We do have free webinars, and you can register for them at finance.usu.edu/EFW, which stands for Empowering Financial Wellness. And we have our schedule up there up until April of this year. And we're always rotating topics. We talk about credit, we talk about debt, we talk about getting organized with your finances, your paperwork, talk about debt, of course. And so I encourage you to check those out and see if there's something that interests you. I hope that this was a great experience. I hope this gave you some motivation and some tools for looking at your own debt. Thanks for being with me today, and I hope you have a great rest of your day.
Thank you, Vincenza. Please feel free, if you have any questions, you can put them in the chat. We will be on here for a couple more minutes and just kind of hanging out.
Okay.